Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you are looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we will talk with tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately.
Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast, and thanks for making us part of your educational PD journey. First-time listeners, welcome, and for our returning listeners, welcome back. We are so glad you are here. Today, we are discussing creating authors in education. Leigh Cook is an educator and published author in BCSD. In today's conversation, we'll chat about how she uses her passion for writing to educate her students. Ms. Cook will talk about how she encourages writing with her students, the process of writing, and some steps to help you get started today. Before we get started, let's pause for this week's tech tip. This week's tech tip is looking at what we can do with our tabs and some of the options that we have with our tabs and how we can organize our tabs to be more efficient. So you have your tabs open, you can always click and drag them and separate and add. And then when you right-click your tabs, it gives you a list of options. You can create a new tab to the right. You can add a tab to your reading list, meaning I want to look at this later. So if I click add to tab to reading list, and then I click over next to my name, the avatar next to my name, next to the extension list, I can show my panel, and then it would show my reading list. So if there's something I want to save for later, that's where my reading list would be. When I also right click, I can add tab to a group. I can create a group of tabs. So if I have groups and I call this my daily tab, I can give it a color, make it red. And now I have my daily tab group, and I can right click and then add to my daily tab group as well, so that when I click my new tab or I click off inside of that, I can collapse that, and that helps clean up those tabs a little bit. When you create groups, then I can open my group, I can ungroup that group to go through. I can reload from here, I can duplicate this tab, so if there's a tab that you want to use. And then also know one that we love in our office, and that is pinning the tabs. If I pin the tab, it makes it smaller, so that I can keep that kind of hidden away. I know that's my ClassLink app. I know that's my Drive app, but they're kind of pinned away and they're smaller. I don't need the name for them. And that's just to help if you have a bunch of tabs open, just to clean up that tab bar a little bit as well. You can mute it, your email specifically, meaning that it's not going to ding in. And then you also have your close options as well down at the bottom. So those are some of the things that you can do with your tabs. Hope you enjoyed the tech tip. Don't forget to check out our tech tip playlist on our YouTube channel as well. So I am Jimmy Kate.
I'm Pam Healey.
And I'm Leigh Cook.
And she is a published author. So we're super excited to have you, and then also to be able to share what you're doing inside of your classroom as well. We're very excited to be able to have you here today. We're at Daniel Island School today. Yep. So thanks to Daniel Island for hosting us and letting us bring our mobile setup and be able to set up and everything that we have going on. So I guess talk a little bit about your journey into writing, just kind of give a brief background and context to people about, what you're doing in writing, and then we'll get into the education stuff.
Well, my writing career actually started as a bucket list thing. I always wanted to be a writer, and I never thought I was good enough. So I finally just put myself out there, went ahead, wrote a book. It's inspired by my daughter and the challenges our students face on not fitting in, not understanding that we are all unique. We are all different. And in my book, the main character, she has some differences, and she learns that your differences can be a positive thing. They can help you navigate the world and make a difference. So that's where it came from. And then the second book came from the Daniel Island students, when I see them all problem solving and doing stuff that most adults can't do.
Right.
But we kind of lose that in the translation. So I want people to understand that you can look at problems from every angle, and it doesn't have to be an adult that solves them. It can be a collaboration with kids and adults, or it can be just the kids.
That's awesome. Fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah. So what made you to start writing books with your students in your class, and kind of talk about that process and how that got started?
Well, my students with Nobi and Nobi's Forest Adventure, they were with me on the journey. I would talk to them about it. I would tell them the second book, they actually helped me approve the cover. Cool. I had 3 options. We all voted on the cover that they chose as the one that went, but they were all very excited about it. And I always thought it would be something that I'd have 5-minute talking points, and then they want to change the subject. And no, I actually have to change the subject. Yeah. They want to talk about it. Ms. Cook, how did you decide it? Ms. Cook, when's it coming out? Ms. Cook, are you going to have a movie? And once I saw
Yeah.
that fire, I was like, well, how about I let you guys be in it?
Sure.
So when my son, who's a senior at Phillips Simmons, he in second grade did a book with this company called Student Treasures as a class. And I found it in my bookshelf and I was like, well, I'll research it, see if they're still existent. They were still existent, and you can do individual books. So like if a classroom teacher wanted to do it, each student can do their own book, or you can do it as a classroom and each student gets an illustration page and a writing page. I decided to pull it into my classroom. So all my fourth graders, each class, we pick a topic. I've done, they had to create their own planets to tie in with their science standards. They had to create their own plant. And we just work through it. I teach them what illustrators are. We talk about descriptive words. And I have them, you can do it on a computer or you can do it on paper and pen. I have them do it on paper and pen because so many of my students I noticed weren't capitalizing stuff, weren't realizing the grammar. So it makes them really go back and think. I usually proofread it and say, you guys need to fix this. And that's how it got started. And they love it. Like either and most of them don't like both parts. They either like illustrator or writer, but both of them, they can find a happy medium.
That's nice. And that totally ties in standards that they're working on anyway without even realizing it. And then we always talk about publishing to the world, as far as not how much better their work is when they know someone else is going to read it.
Yeah. And then their parents get an option to buy it. So what I do is, one year I've done it at Christmas, one year I did it in the school year, but I send home a letter explaining what we're doing. We're doing a computer lab. Then I send home the order form. They can order online or they can send it back to me.
That's cool.
And some of them, I had students buying 4 or 5 copies for their grandparents. Or and you can also donate one. I always get a copy as the teacher that's doing it, and they enjoy it. And then there's also the contest. I've had one of the kids be one of the classes be top finalists.
That's awesome.
They love owning that work. They love saying, we did this. And even their siblings. I've had younger siblings. I have one that's in 6th grade that I taught in 4th grade. Their younger sibling is in 4th grade now. That was the first thing he asked when he came in class was, are we going to do books this year?
Absolutely, yeah.
And to me, that's awesome. It's making them want to come in my room and have fun.
Yeah, and you're empowering them to take control of a process and create something that's tangible that they can get their hands on and that they can be proud of. And that's, I think, what we want in anything that our kids are creating in the classroom.
And we'll have to share the resources. I'll get those resources from you. We can put them in the show notes. So if any other teachers want to do the same thing, they know where to go.
Yeah, and my 4th grade teachers love it too. I mean, they'll collaborate with me. I know, like I said, science standards changed a little bit. So we thought we couldn't do the planets, but they were willing. We were playing with the idea of doing the American Revolution last year and having each student pick a character and then a battle or a war or something and letting them own it. But it owns their learning and lets them apply it rather than just memorizing it.
I love it. Yeah. As a history teacher, that gets me all excited. So. And I used Book Creator a lot in our classroom. We would make stories. We wrote children's books one year and go read them to the elementary schools. And so that's where we like that resource for us, but we never created something that was tangible. Like some of my kids would choose to make a book and make it tangible versus using Book Creator. I gave them that choice, but that's a really nice, feature.
It looks great too.
It does. Yeah. Very professional. So really cool. What else, as far as, the publishing process, like how much does that entail? Like as far as, getting that with your kids and working through that program? With
the kids with the Student Treasures, it's actually very easy. And they actually ask me back every year. They send me a reminder, but you reach out to them. You can choose to do it on the computer. You can choose whether you want to do individual books, like if it's just one classroom teacher, or you can choose to do a classroom set of books.
Sure.
They send you all the materials.
Wow.
They send you the illustration pages. They send you the writing pages, the order forms. They send you everything. And then you have a published by date that you choose. And it's a little bit fluid. I've had to change mine a couple times.
Sure.
But it tells you exactly when you have to ship it back. They pay for the shipping. So they send you a pre-ship label and it's very easy. I mean, a lot of the teachers are like, is it very, I said, don't get me wrong. You have to be organized in that you have to know this goes with this class. This goes with this class. But there's no cost really to the teachers. The parents order, the teachers usually get a copy. You can order, if you order the whole class, you get a bonus copy. I've gotten 2 copies before, but it's a very easy process. And the kids, they love coming in and doing it. And they love sharing it with their teachers. Like there's the year I did the planet books, I actually had kids give up part of their lunch because they hadn't finished their illustrations and they wanted to stay and finish them.
Sure. Yeah, and we definitely see that when you empower your students to be able to, learn on their own, and the fact that they're wanting that is shows the power of what you can do when you're empowering your students to learn. So, So yeah, we'll definitely have a resource to that in the show notes. So please definitely check out your show notes. And so if, teachers ready to jump in with this, follow in your footsteps, what would be like the beginning process? And like, as they're talking to their kids as far as like step-by-step of, just kind of quickly go, like, how can they get started with this and helping their kids kind of create like a checklist or a plan?
Well, that's the other thing I love about Student Treasures. They have a lot of resources on their website. So once you've ordered your kit, you can actually pull up, it's called a teacher resources, and they will actually have all the worksheets for planning, brainstorming. If you want to do what different grade levels, they have K through 2 first, and then it's K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 7th, and high school.
Oh, wow.
But they have all the resources. So you as a teacher could, the way I did it, at least for some of the decision makings, I chose what we were doing. But like when we came up with the book titles, all my book titles all have different names. I use it as a time to teach them about voting. And so each table in my room you came up with one name you wanted for the book. We wrote all of them on the board. Then as a class, we voted to decide what book name was. So that was one of the first steps. But they make it very easy to plan. Like if you want to go out and do your own worksheets and use some of you have stuff made, but they have brainstorming. They have, if you decide to do, I have done a second grade book when second grade does their animal project. They had a worksheet that had the animal name and then details, like detail 1, detail 2.
Nice.
So they have all the worksheets. So that's the one thing I like about it is it's not any extra work except to find them unless you'd like the extra work. But what I usually do is I always introduce at the beginning of the school year, like I'm going with my kids right now, telling fourth grade we are doing the books.
Right.
I haven't come up exactly with the topic yet.
Sure.
This year, since I've done it a couple of years, I may actually let them have a little bit of input.
That's what I was about to say. Give them some choice and let them kind of work their own topic and what's something they're passionate about, maybe.
Yeah, and I've thought about doing it for like a Genius Hour thing or something like that, but work through that and then have them have their input. That's the one thing I do like about it is they always have the input. It's not always me saying no. The only I always have a requirement is it has to be at least a paragraph. I've done the landscape books. I've done portrait. Portrait usually is only a paragraph, or no, sorry. Landscape is a paragraph. Portrait's usually a couple more, but I also don't push them and let them own it. And then the only restriction they do have, so it is a little bit interesting. The illustrations have to be in marker.
Okay.
And the writing has to be in pen.
Right.
But other than that, I've never had a problem. I'm not saying the first year I didn't have to go back and trace every single fourth grader's pencil because the pens I got didn't work. But that's the only restrictions. Otherwise, it's open to interpretation for all teachers.
Right.
And it's fun for them.
Yeah. What kind of timeline do you work with as far as,
I did it last year. I did it in a month.
Okay.
I will never do that again.
Yeah. Don't recommend that.
No, I would usually budget for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
But it's not a constant thing. I only have the computer lab kids for an hour.
Gotcha.
So I can concentrate. That's why it takes me a little bit longer. But like my sons, I think when he did it in second grade, they only did it for 3 weeks. But they did it in class and they had if they didn't finish their early finisher stuff
Gotcha.
in the morning, they'd have that and they just do it when they were doing that. So I'd say if it's a special area like computer lab teacher or something, I would say 6 weeks.
Right. Do you have an hour every day or once a week?
Once a week.
Once a week. So
I have an hour once a week. But if you're a classroom teacher, it might be a little bit less, maybe a month.
Sure.
It just depends on the age level. When I did it with second grade, it was a lot of hand holding.
Sure.
Because they're still learning to write, but it was still in their own handwriting and they were able to do it. When I did it with fourth graders, I still had some, but most of them, it was very easy to get them to put their descriptions down.
Sure.
You didn't have to say, well, you need a descriptive word here. Because that was the nice thing about the planet thing. It tied in the English standards too.
Right.
They had to describe what animals lived on their planet. What did their planet look like? Was it hot? Was it cold?
Yeah. You can bring in lots of different standards
you
into all different disciplines. Yeah. This can be applied, I think, across the board. So.
Yeah. And I'll have to take some pictures of the books that you have. That way, anyone that looks at the show notes, they can see the pictures of books, links to anything that they might need to start planning if they wanted to do the same in their class.
And like I said, feel free to reach out. I'm always of the opinion, if you don't know something, ask it. I don't mind helping, or I will try and help you find the answer. That's my customer service background coming back out. But I will try and help you if you need help doing it. But it's very self-explanatory. It's very easy. Okay. And there's even also a way to even take it more outside the classroom. They actually have, the parents can look on it. They have it where the kids can do it at home too. Mom and dad pay like $39.99 or something, but they can do it at home. So like if mom and dad want, because I had a bunch of kids too, they would bring me up their own work on PowerPoint and stuff like that, because they had seen their older siblings like, well, we're not in fourth grade yet, but we want to write.
Right.
So I had second graders, third graders.
Aw.
That's awesome.
Would write whole stories. I have one fourth grader, she's in fifth grade now, that I'm scared when she gets older because she's going to put me out of business.
Yeah.
Because she's writing like an adult is now.
Wow.
But she loves it.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah, that passion is, and you know, having kids be able to find that passion for what they're interested in is great. And so really appreciate you being here. Really appreciate you being a resource for our district and everything like that. Again, remember, you check out the show notes for resources, for links to everything that we talked about. You can also find a link to the podcast video, the tech tip video, and to the Innovation Squadcast in Unified PD. For every 2 episodes, you get 1 hour of credit. You can fill out the Google form that goes along with that. Don't forget, you know, to subscribe and follow in YouTube and on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And we also, you know, want to hear from you. If you have any other podcast topics, if you want to be on it like Ms. Cook is, we definitely want you guys to be a part of this podcast journey. And so thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you for everybody listening. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.